When we move beyond our own ego, we are able to move beyond being upset by other people's also. What's going on with me right now? Why am I being triggered? When you do that a lot, when you start that process of understanding why you're being triggered, immediately, I think Eckhart Tolle even said this, the moment you decide that you're not present is when you're actually present. That's the beginning of this stepping into this space, which is sort of there all the time, but we're disconnected from it because we're run by our minds and our thoughts. Finding these places where you can have awareness of the pain, what it specifically is, moving through it without resistance.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Awakening Process 101 podcast. In this podcast, we discuss spirituality, emotional health, healing, and the true meaning of awakening in the context of our modern lives. And today, as always, I'm here with my best friend, Pernilla Burke, the founder and the creator of this podcast, and also the writer and the photographer and the founder of the website, Awakening 101. And my name is Louise, and I'm a yoga teacher and a Buddhist practitioner.
The theme today is, we call it moving beyond ego. And what that means, the idea is the understanding that when we let go of our ego or our pain or triggers, then we are also able to let go of being triggered by yours. When we move beyond our own ego, we are able to move beyond being upset by other people's also. And it's basically something that I discovered through a long practice of meditation, that being triggered by other people, that's how we live, right? I mean, our husbands, our parents, our kids, whatever, they trigger us. And then I had a moment in a meditation about a year ago where I realized that if I could let my own pain dissolve and I stepped beyond that, then in a conversation with somebody that I could be triggered by, I could move beyond their pain too somehow. Or I could have the ability to see their pain and therefore not be triggered by it. Because if you see other person's pain, you have empathy for them instead. So it's like a going into a loving space beyond the irritation and the triggering. Because if we're hurting ourselves, then we get annoyed with other people that are hurting, right?
Yes.
So that's what we mean. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
That's what we're going to talk about today. Exactly. So when you said moving beyond the ego, I always, for me, it's easier to understand moving behind the ego.
Yeah.
So because there is a space behind there.
That's a space.
Yeah, it's a space behind there. And I think that when I guide my yoga students, I always guide them in through the mental body first. Actually, first the physical body, then the mental body, emotional body, energetic body. And then when you have guided yourself through that, you kind of open the door to what you call that divine space, that pure love, that when we are behind the thoughts, we're behind the emotions. That today's podcast also, we are interested to hear your journey, Pernilla, how you got there. You mentioned meditation, but it's not just to sit up and meditate. You need to have a certain awareness of where to go, right? We had one podcast that we talked about Eckhart Tolle, and I think that it's very aligned what you read about Eckhart Tolle and what he had, his awakening, or how we could call it, when he realized that, wow.
Yeah, because he realized that there was two places. It's the limited self, which is me, Pernilla, who gets mad at people all the time. And then there's this what we call the larger self, or the soul self, that is sort of the knowing aspect of ourselves that is in that space beyond thoughts and beyond our ego. Most of us know that it's in there, that person, because we know that it's in there when we're feeling loving and forgiving. It's there. But then our small self is the one that gets triggered. So he realized that, wait a minute, there's two of us. And how can I rest in that larger self? How can I work on being in my soul self? And that's this moving beyond the ego is like one of the steps in that direction. Like, how do we find that place even? right?
Would you mind maybe open up with a little meditation or to kind of guide us into that space?
Okay,
Thank
let's
you.
do it. Just close your eyes and take a deep breath in through your nostrils, out. Feel the bottom of your sit bones as it sinks into the chair. Feel the pressure of the chair hitting the skin. Breathing in, just as you're sitting here, notice what your thoughts are doing. Are the thoughts going, oh, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? Just see if you can just watch your mind as it's struggling to relax. Just imagine that you're sitting cross-legged on the beach, looking out over the waves as they're coming in and out on the shore. Waves are roaring, they're voracious, but you just watch. You're not affected by the waves. They come and they go, just as your thoughts, they come and they go. Just for a second, just imagine that you are the sky, quiet, silent sky that is above, watching and knowing. Beneath is the ocean and the waves and all activity. But you're the sky and you just watch. Or you can imagine for a second that you are the ocean, the container of the world. Above you is the roaring waves and all the activity. For you are the container. Step back into this space of knowing the larger place behind your thoughts. Let the thoughts dissolve. Rest here with the image of the sky, the container of the ocean. And know that you are so much more than your thoughts. Take a deep breath in. Bring your attention back to your body and your sit bones. You can open your eyes.
That was really, really nice. Right now, when you guided us into that deeper space, I don't know, it's because I already have 3 hours of yoga classes that I have been teaching, but coming into that space, the divine space, to that space where everything is spaceless. How can we be in that space in our daily life? Or can we?
Yeah. So I guess it's like recognizing, first of all, when you recognize that you're not in that space, that's when you know. And then it's awareness. When we start understanding the things that we become triggered by, and when we make a decision that, hey, I'm not going to be, I want to change this, and you take that moment. So if you're in the middle of a conversation and you feel like the pit in your stomach, it starts getting tighter and your chest is tight and you're like, ugh. That's when you're like, okay, you have this moment of reflection or awareness, always awareness, right? You're asking, what's going on with me right now? Why am I being triggered? When you do that a lot, when you start that process of understanding why you're being triggered, immediately, I think Eckhart Tolle even said this, the moment you decide that you're not present is when you're actually present. That's the beginning of this stepping into this space, which is sort of there all the time, but we're disconnected from it because we're run by our minds and our thoughts. And that's why I like this, having images that you can sort of leave as an imprint in your mind throughout the day. So like if you're the sky, then if you have that image when you're in a conversation with somebody and you feel triggered, that you're actually, you can step into that place of being larger than just me.
I'm with you. And I think that when it works, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's difficult. Oh, when
When
does it
does
not
it
work?
not
No,
work?
but it's difficult when we are in pain or we're being triggered by a person where we can't keep ourselves calm. Like, even though we are aware of how this
Mm-hmm.
is triggering in my heart and the sensations, and I get the big bowl in my belly, even though I can be aware of all that, it's difficult to tap out of it, to snap out of it, to bring
Yeah.
myself into
Yeah.
this. And I
Yeah.
think when I can't snap out of it, that's when I'm creating some pain. And that pain becomes
Mm-hmm.
worse because I'm holding on to something that I should not hold on to. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking of
Mm-hmm.
your blog that you have written about this, where you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about just a few years ago when you start sitting with pain and sorrow and grief. And when I read that, I can identify that's also how I've been working. That was for me the game changer to arrive into this space. I couldn't really, maybe I understood it in my mind, but I didn't
Yeah,
experience it in the way I do today.
let's talk about that because I
Mm.
think we have to explain. So, this concept of understanding how to move beyond pain was something that I could explain, or it became sort of a concept once I understood the experience of the pain that I was going through myself. So, in the blog that I haven't published yet, I had a horse that died last year, and he was really important to me. It's a long story. If you don't like horses, that's fine. But for me, he was like my soulmate. So I discovered through grieving that I didn't want to escape from feeling the pain of losing him because I loved him so much. Mostly in our lives, when we feel pain, we want to push it away. But this was the first time when I was like, wait, I don't want to push this pain away. I want to sit with it. But in that process, I realized that like when I sat with that pain and went into it is where also I was able to step into that layer beyond the pain. So it's almost like when you resist the pain, you get stuck in it. But when you go move through it and surrender to the pain, that's when you're able to just, it's not like you're not resisting it anymore. So it doesn't stay. It's just sort of like, it's like a process that you just move
Mm.
through. You're moving through traffic and you're like, oh, here's the pain. And then I go to the next
Absolutely,
thing. Does that make
absolutely. I
any
think there
sense
was
to
a
you,
very
Louise?
good visualization there. It's a little bit like the traffic light. You get into the red light, and if you stay there, it's going to turn yellow and then
Yeah.
green.
And
I
yeah.
never, I never saw it that way, but that's definitely perfect. I think also for me, using visualizations like that always help. This is kind of the key, what we're talking about today, or how we
Mhm.
create our inner peace, and also how we dare to create intimacy with ourselves, as we talked a little bit in one of our
Yeah.
previous podcasts. And I think that what you have mentioned there today, that we are stepping beyond or behind our thoughts, our emotions, our experiences, we're getting into what's behind all of this. And through the meditation where you guided us today, with that visualization of us becoming the sky and becoming a witness of what's going on, what's moving, what's underneath it. And then what you said when you lost your horse, to actually coming to the state where you are willing to sit with the pain and experience what happens when we sit with it, and going into the
Mhm.
traffic light, that will be the transformation. And it's only by sitting and holding the things with our awareness how we can experience the transformation, how we can move beyond
Mhm.
beyond the ego, and how the resistance becomes non-resistance, right?
Yeah, I mean, I had this other example when my father passed away. I was there when he died, so I cried a lot, in the hospital. And then as the weeks went by, I would sit in meditation and I would feel the
Mm.
grief or the sorrow come up. And my default
Mm.
setting was to shut it down, to go, ugh, and then like either get up from meditation or just like start thinking about something else. But I really worked on that year to just go,
Mm.
okay, here it comes. Here's my tears. Woohoo! And just go, okay, let's cry, let's do this. Because I don't think that I ever did that before. I always, if I cried so hysterically that I always thought that it was the bottom of the barrel. Trying to understand like that, or finding these places where you can have awareness of the pain, what it specifically is, moving through it without resistance. Crying because somebody's passed away is actually
Mm.
part of life's process. We're human beings, people leave, and moving through that grief in that manner actually helped me heal, even though the goal is not to forget or get out of the grieving. I don't have There's no goal. It just My goal is to
So
feel
what
what I'm
would the
supposed to be
intention be
feeling.
for you?
I think it's just to be open to feeling, surrender to grief or happiness, we have a default setting that we don't want to feel
But now,
bad. And I shouldn't actually call it bad, because that's not what it is, because as human beings, we have sadness and joy. And both of them are equally important for us to be healthy human beings. Experiencing them
and part
is
of life,
equally
right?
important for us, for our hearts to be
But now, for
healthy and
example, now you
open.
mentioned two very concrete, and I mean, for me, human reasons to be sad. You know, you lost your dad and you lost your horse. Could it be like, if we take anger, for example, like sitting with the anger or the frustration, or maybe even hate, and you're being so disappointed of someone, or you're being bullied in school, or even at work, or something, or a person is really, really triggering, to sit with that pain that can be so dark and so black. Wouldn't it be a help in that way to ask yourself, where is this pain coming from? Does it make sense? I mean, the previous with the grief is very natural. It's a different type of pain, you know,
A different
pain
type of pain is
that's more, dangerous, so to say.
not dangerous, but not something that
No,
comes from a
definitely
place of
not.
love.
But maybe it comes in the end of it. Maybe it comes from a place of love. That anger, that frustration comes from you being abandoned as a child. What I mean, so it comes from a loving space. But what I'm trying to say is that if we sit with feelings or emotions that are more challenging, let's put it that way, that are more draining, that are more challenging for us, would it be a help that when you sit to feel that anger in your body and ask yourself, why? Where do I feel this? Well, this is up in my throat, it's in the back of my heart, or it's my lower belly, and kind of breathing into that area and feel how you can transform it, be with it, work with it, and then even maybe step into and ask yourself, where can I identify this from?
It's a great practice, but I think for me, I would have never wanted to do that when I was like super angry,
No,
because I didn't want to feel my
today
body.
you would. Yeah, but that's what
And
I'm
I
talking
think,
about. I mean,
yeah,
yeah,
today I can
of
do
course.
it, but
I
I'm
mean,
just
who
saying,
would? I mean, I would smoke a spliff
how do we?
uh, sit down with my anger.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, let's think about if you're feeling any of those and you don't have a practice, or you're more at the beginning of a practice, where can you start scratching the surface of this whole thing? Like, how do you start working with pain if you're at the beginning of it
But
all?
I think to start, you need to feel where in the body you feel the pain, because the body never lies. So you need to know
Yeah.
where is this
Yeah.
where is this triggering point, where and sit with it from that space.
Yeah, I think to me that's so hard. And I mean, that's, everybody's different, I guess. Give me an example from your yoga classes. What do people say when you
No, but for
give them
example,
this practice?
like yesterday when I had one workshop, and the theme was actually how to use resistance and make it into resources. If you sitting with pain, or if you're sitting with any resistance, I mean, first of all, I think it's important to be curious. I think that the attitude of being investigated, like being like, okay, I need to check what's going on. I remember my grandma, she always said in French, l'aventure est au coin de la rue. The adventure is around the corner. You never really know what's waiting for the big tour inside. You know, all of a sudden you find this divine space and everything is great, and all of a sudden you get distracted with sound and you just feel like, oh God, I can't be in my body. I want to get out of here. I need to move. For my practice, it's been the game changer been when I could relate this to my body, and when I can use the breath to kind of transform it. And that's what I tell my students too, that when we sit in meditation, whatever comes up, be with it. And where is the resistance, even if it's emotionally or physically or mentally, use the breath to breathe, to work with it. Work like, because the breath is really, it's the magic and all the cells are breathing without even we paying attention to it. So when we can breathe into the different areas, and I think that when people, and even myself, when I experience how that can transform, I get a blind faith to my body, knowing that, okay, I can do this. And also, one of the things what I got when I started in the 12-step program was, we never get more than we can handle, even if it feels like that. But I really trusted the universe not to, I mean, this whole divorce, I was like, God, how can I, when I look back at it, I'm like, how did I survive?
Yeah.
And how could I teach during all that time? But we never get more than we can, when we can handle. And again, it might not feel that way, but I had this blind faith that, okay, I need to work this together with my body.
What's interesting is that you're describing working with pain from identifying the areas of the body that get tight or resistant, then using your breath to sort of dissolve those areas of tightness, and using your breath to create awareness around those. And my side of it is, I use meditation and witnessing thoughts. They're not the same, but they're the same area of tools that you can use. And whichever one
So true.
works for you. I think that for me, it's like I started with meditation and witnessing my mind. And now, after years of practice, I'm better at identifying the tightness in my body when I feel it and why. And maybe
Yeah.
it's the other way around for Louise. You started by saying, I can feel this in my upper abdomen. I feel tightness here. There's resistance here. How can I work with this? And then that leads to more quiet mind and the ability to be an observer. I believe this to be true is that unless we work with pain and why we feel triggered by other people, it's never going to go away. It actually accumulates. It doesn't actually like sort of dissolve throughout a lifetime. I believe that it is so crucial that we start understanding and identifying where the pain comes from in order for us to live a life where we can interact with people in a way where there's like ease and joy. The painful things that happen to us, they don't just go away unless we have a healthy process around them, unless we work with it. So it's like taking the steps to say, asking yourself why and where and how am I feeling is so important for long-lasting inner joy, which is what our goal is as human beings. Like we didn't get
No,
born
I
to
think it's
just feel
such an
miserable,
important point what you're saying there. We didn't get born to be
right?
miserable. It's so important.
We were born to get to know ourselves and to know that space beyond our thoughts and beyond our ego. That is our true selves. All these spiritual practices and all like therapy and everything are just steps on the ladder to get to know ourself and interacting with people in a way where we can interact with their larger self. This is what I was brought up in the blog too. When you're interacting with another person and you're interacting from that place of beyond ego. I'm a clean slate. I'm listening to you. I'm really listening to you. I see your pain and step beyond your pain when I'm connecting with you. Then we're actually two souls connecting. We're not in our resistance and in our pain. And I think that's how you find the place of true connection with other human beings. And that's the thing with animals that we come back to this every time. I can connect with my dog on a deep level because he doesn't have pain and triggers and frustration. And I don't get mad at him because he like barks at the mailman. But if you came over, Louise, and started yelling at somebody, I would be mad at you because you yell at somebody.
Yeah.
Human beings trigger us way more than other things, right? The desire to change, the desire to be a person in this world searching for deep inner lasting joy.
You're right again. And I'm just thinking of one practice that we did when I took the MBSR training. There is, I think it's in module 7 or something. There is especially this about communication. It really got up for me that now it's, it was in 2016 I did this, but at that time, for the first time, to listen to a person with full attention that you just said, and don't even look at the person. We were sitting shoulders to shoulders, and you were telling me your story, and I was listening without judging, without thinking of what I should say, without having an answer, just listening to what this person is saying, and then tell the story again. This is what I heard. And it was such a good training because very often, and I can see this happens with my children, especially with Holly, she says something and I don't even let her end the sentence because I already have an answer, because I don't want to hear the end of the sentence because it's always begging for something, or what do I know? You know what I mean? It's like, so I'm judging. instead of really listening. So I think what you just said there is really, really important. I think this would be my homework, that I will start listening to I listen to you, Pernilla, but I will listen to my children with that awareness, because I have tapped out a little bit from that. I'm too quick of just answering, or, I don't want to hear more, or, I know. So
you're talking about feeling it in your body. So when you're having a conversation with your daughter and you start feeling that frustration in your body, like in your chest, you're like, oh God, here she goes again, and it's awful. Then to say, what is it about me, Louise? Like, why do I find this frustrating? If you ask yourself a few times, you'll figure it out. Like, what is it that
but I
makes
think
you
I already
frustrated?
know, just by you asking me now, is that I don't feel that I have the resources enough to hurt. I could take that even going back to my childhood, or feeling not being good enough comparing to my parents. It's an underlying frustration of not being enough.
Wow.
But I am enough. But I will
Wow.
work with it. I think it's very interesting. Thank you, Pernilla.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful stuff, Louise, I have to say.
But thank you for guiding me into that space. We are best friends. Can I go out and have a smoke now?
Yeah, but it's yeah, exactly. I'm not going to say this is simple, but just the question, why? And if you ask that question, why? I mean, most of the time, we're all really intelligent, soulful beings. So some answer will come and you will feel relief. And that's why we're doing this. Just the awareness of why will shift how you interact.
Can I add something to that? Because I start my classes when we sit in arriving meditation. Put your hands on your heart and ask yourself, what brought me to the mat today? And some people, and I even say this too, when there's people I don't know and they're new in the class, some people find it enormously triggering. Some people have one answer, some people have 10 answers. But the intention of what you say, asking yourself, is that when I ask myself, the inquiring, I'm in the present moment, first of all. I'm right here. I might not, and the answer is not really that important, but then also becoming more aware of, interesting. I say, what do I want to create of this? What value do I want to bring into this? Because this is actually a secret time. It's my time. There's no emails, there's no children. It's my meditation or my yoga time, or it's the mating with myself. And we have to cultivate that. Yeah, and we need to cultivate that with awareness, because the more we can cultivate with awareness, the more we're tapping into this space of ours. Deep stuff today.
Deep stuff.
We could just sit here and look at each other and be in that divine space. Wow. I'm not going anywhere. No, but it's interesting also, as you said, what
all right, darling.
You said it sounds easy. It's not rocket science what we're talking about, right? We just need to practicing it.
But it's very hard. Yeah. But we have to be reminded. I mean, and I think that's why we always come back to the same sort of thing. Awareness.
That's the name of this podcast.
Yeah, we should call it Awareness 101.
Today's podcast, we have gone through moving beyond ego, and we could also say step beyond the ego. Talked about that space, of different ways of how to find that space through meditation. Pernilla guided us through a visualization. We also talked about different access of how to get into that space behind the ego. Pernilla had her way, I had my way, and in the end of the day, it's different roads of what kind of guides us into this space. So, whatever works. So I guess it's nothing right and wrong. I think as long as we are aware, as you said, then we're on the right path. Thank you for listening today. We see you next week.
Thank you.